Remember when we first gave the Lord our hand and we told Jesus yes. Through the course of days, hardship came and we wasn't as gung-ho as we was when we first said yes. But God reminds us, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. God is merciful.
Yes, Lord.
God is kind. I was thinking about that song when I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning, looking at this word, and I said, Lord, you do know I have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, don't you? But there is a word from the Lord. Found recorded in 2 Corinthians chapter number 12, beginning at verse number 1. Second Corinthians 12, beginning at verse number 1. It reads, I must go on boasting, although there is nothing to be gained. I will go on to visions and revelations from the Lord. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. And I know that this man, whether in the body or apart from the body, I do not know, but God knows, was caught up to paradise and heard unexpressible things, things that no one is permitted to tell. I will boast about a man like that, but I will not boast about myself, except about my weakness. Even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool, because I would not be speaking the truth. But I refrain so no one will think more of me than what is warranted by what I do or say, or because of these surprisingly great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all things more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight myself in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Amen. The word of the Lord is already blessed. Amen. Just for about 16 minutes and 38 seconds, I want to talk on this subject matter today. My grace is sufficient. Amen. My grace is sufficient. I am currently involved in a golf club that we play a different course on every Saturday. In this league we're in, there is a gamut of competition and skill levels. But because, Brother Preacher, I hit the ball so long, I like to say that I'm unbeatable. So on one day when I was feeling myself, I had the utmost confidence of saying, I just cannot be beat. These guys are battling for second and third place, because first place is already wrapped up. I put on my fancy Nike wear. I was geared up from head to toe, coordinating everything from the hat to the socks. I went out there, chest poked out as far as humanly possible. Get to the first hole, knock it straight down the fairway. I'm like, they about to really get it. Proceeded to go on to the hole and make a par, and I'm like, it's on now. And from the hole on from there, you would think Elisa was out there playing golf. I was hitting them sideways, backways, in the water, in the trees, in the bushes, and had the worst score out of everybody in the league. And I went home saying, man, that's what happens when you start bragging and you want to walk around with this old self-confidence, thinking you can do all things, thinking you just the greatest thing since sliced bread. God has a way of humbling us to remind us, apart from me, you are nothing. And if it had not been for God on my side, where would I be? Walk with me through this text. We find the Apostle Paul in a position to where he had to defend himself as his credentials of him being able to preach the gospel. Oftentimes, brothers and sisters, you're going to find out that when you try to live a holy life and walk upright, there's going to be times you're going to have to defend what you believe. You're going to have to be able to stand toe-to-toe on the gospel that you say you serve and tell somebody, this is what thus says the Lord. And it's hard sometimes when you get around a group of people who like to think they are more higher than you are. Amen, somebody? I ain't going to talk about, nobody's going to talk about what I'm talking about, but there's certain groups of people that like to say, if you don't do it this way, you ain't saved. If you ain't doing it like that, you don't have no religion. But I'm standing here today, if it had not been for Jesus, none of us would be here. And my gospel says that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And your gospel is not what saves me, it's God's gospel that saves me. Sometimes you're just going to have to defend where you stand. Paul was having to defend himself. And what's funny about this, Sister Tony, he wasn't defending himself to the people outside the church. He was defending himself to the people inside the church. His own brothers in the gospel, he had to defend himself to let them know, hey, God saved me just like he saved you. God turned me around just like he turned you around. Yes, Lord. And I'm glad about it. He had to defend himself. You got to tell somebody where God has brought me from. Well, let me tell you something. We all have a story. We all have a part to play. My Bible says that there's many limbs in this thing. There's feet. There's heads, there's elbows. We all have a part to play in this thing. He says, I don't want to keep on boasting, but I can. You see what I'm saying? I've been some places. I've endured some things for Christ's sake. I've had some circumstances happen to me for Christ's sake. But I ain't here to let y'all think of how good I am. I'm here to let y'all know how good Christ is. You see, I can't sit here and tell you that I'm the world's greatest dad. That's my opinion. The only one who can say it is your kids. And if your kids don't say it, guess what? You ain't. That's just the way it is. I got a buddy. He ain't here, so I can talk about him. Brother Preacher, don't tell his name when we leave here, but it rhymes with Scarian. He likes to tell folks when we get out in public how he used to dunk the basketball. He's 5'11" both ways. And wants to tell folks that he used to dunk the basketball. And I say, man, you need to tell the story when somebody who knows you ain't standing beside you. Because I was there when you was attempting to dunk the ball and we couldn't even get a credit card underneath your feet when you jumped. You can't proclaim yourself something. Only other people can say whether you've done X, Y, Z or not. Because your story is going to be embellished. Your story is going to be one-sided.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be found boasting about something that you have not done. That's why our testimony is personal. It's because I've gone through it. And this is my story.
Right.
And God is my witness. God is telling people, this person here is a soldier that has fought many battles
Yes.
for my name's sake.
Yeah, yeah.
He tells them, I could be telling y'all about when I was called up to the third heavens and was seeing and hearing things that a human ain't even capable of reproducing.
Well.
None of y'all have this credibility. Nobody here can say you've been where I've been. I could go on and tell you how great it was, but it won't profit me nothing. I could go on and tell y'all how God met me on the road to Damascus. And I was blind for 3 days. And the man of God laid his hands on me and I got my eyesight back. I could go on and tell y'all about my experiences with Jesus, but that just wouldn't profit me right now. I can boast about it if I wanted to boast about it. But he said, you know what? It'll just make me look like a fool. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to bring light to Jesus. He goes on and tells them how much I could be giving y'all all this fluffy stuff that has transpired in my life, but it just wouldn't warrant me to say this at this time. I would rather talk about my weaknesses than to talk about my strengths. This brother's preaching.
Well.
I would rather talk about my weaknesses
Come on.
than to talk about my strength.
Yeah.
Because when I talk about my strengths, it's puffing me up.
Yeah.
But when I talk about my weaknesses,
Come on.
I'm giving God the glory.
Yeah.
He says, man, if I kept on going on and on, I would just be being conceited. I wouldn't be doing nothing but wearing a fancy hat with a fancy shirt and socks and hitting the ball down the middle. That's all I would be doing. But I didn't come here for that reason. I've come here to let y'all know that God is merciful and God does greater things for me when I'm weak than he does for me when I'm strong. Tells him I was dealing with a fleshly torment that I felt was hindering me from doing God's work. I'm ready to step on a few toes right about now. When people say I can't do it because something is hindering me from doing it. I can't praise you because the kids is acting crazy. It's hindering me. I can't give to you, Lord, because the bills are due. It's hindering me. Lord, I can't sing today because my voice is hoarse. It's hindering me. Lord, too much is going on outside and I'm tired. It's hindering me. He said things was hindering me. I felt like from doing God's gospel. So I pleaded with him. Lord, take it away from me. Don't raise your hand. Lord, I can't do it. It's bothering me. Lord, take it away. I can't do it. He didn't ask him once. He didn't ask him twice. He asked him 3 times. Lord, I can't do it. It's bothering me. It's hindering me. The devil is turning it all the time. It's provoking me. It's keeping me from working like I want to work today.
Yeah. Come on.
Kept on asking him, Lord, take it from me. I can't work in this condition.
Well,
I recall, Brother George, when I was going through my divorce, man, it was a tough time. It was hard. I said, Lord, I cannot do it by myself. Lord, I can't raise these kids by myself. Lord, I can't preach like I want to by myself. God said, oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. That's exactly what I want you to do.
well,
That's exactly how I want you to be. That's exactly what I want you to go through. Is exactly that situation. Why? Because you can't do it on your own strength.
yeah.
You're going to have to rely on me.
Yeah.
He said, Lord, I asked him 3 times. I pleaded with him 3 times. But God's response is, my grace
Yes.
is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. My grace, my unmerited favor
Yes.
is sufficient for you.
Yeah.
That's telling me that I don't deserve what I'm getting, but I'm getting it anyway.
Yes.
Well,
I wish I had somebody praying with me. I don't deserve what I'm getting,
that's all right.
but I'm getting it anyway.
Yes.
I don't deserve to have my family restored.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on.
You don't even need it
Come on.
because my grace
Grace.
is sufficient. You don't need a kickstand or a crutch to help get you through your situation.
Come on.
My grace
Yes. Yes.
is sufficient to get you through it. Why did God tell him this? It's because when I get to a point to where all I can do is depend on God, God makes me strong.
Well,
Yes.
That's when I feel like crying. God says there's no need to cry because I've got your back. Tells him I've got this thing, and I've had this encounter with God's grace that changed me forever. I wonder if anybody in here has had an encounter with God's grace.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's a difference when I meet God according to my needs, but when I meet God and learn of Him according to God's grace,
Yeah.
it makes a different appreciation for what I might be going through.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been involved in a situation to where that situation could have taken you out of here, it could have been the end of you.
My God.
It could have wrecked your entire world. It could have changed you for forever. But somehow, some way, God's grace met you at the point of your knees. I've seen people have a car wreck that just wasn't quite that bad that passed away. But you had a car accident and didn't have a scratch
Yeah.
on your body. That's God's grace. You've been through situations where people attacked you, where people tried to take you out of here, but God's grace protected you and kept you from danger seen and unseen. It's something about God's grace
Yes. Yes.
that keeps us from giving up. He says, that's why for Christ's sake, thank you, God, I delight in weaknesses. Everybody ain't going to be able to say this, Sister Gwen. I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and in difficulties. For when I'm weak, then I am strong. Oh,
this brother was preaching this thing. I understand that God has a way of bringing us to a position to where we must totally trust in Him. And God has a way of exposing my weaknesses so that my weaknesses can turn around and make me better. I'm glad today because my story might not be your story. But I know for a fact God has brought each and every one of us through some type of situation to where God's grace brought you through. It was God's grace that woke me up this morning, and it was God's grace that started me on my way. It was God's grace that allowed me to make it across the highway, and it was God's grace that brought me here this morning. It was nothing but God's grace.
Yes, Lord. Thank you for your grace.
Something about God's grace.
Yeah.
And I want to just close with one of my old favorite songs that if I didn't have gone through the pandemic, I might have sung. When the Lord says that I've had some good days.
Yeah.
And I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and some sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Oh, but when I look things over and I get to my own right mind, I can clearly say that God has been good to me, and I won't complain. I won't complain for weaknesses, and I won't complain over insults. I won't complain over hardships, and I won't complain over persecutions. I won't complain, Lord, when things don't look right. I won't complain when my money's funny. I won't complain when I don't feel good in my body. I won't complain when my mama's in the hospital. I won't complain if I get fired from my job. I won't complain if I get kicked out the house, because God's grace is sufficient.
Yes, Lord.
It will get me through any situation, because when I'm weak,
Yes, sir.
then Christ is strong. You know, over 2,000 years ago, Grace went to the Garden of Gethsemane, and Grace prayed,
Well,
Lord, if you will, take this cup from me.
yes, Lord.
Grace pleaded with his father that it was hard to go through what he was going through by himself.
Well,
Grace asked his father, what else do you want me to do? And his father gave him his answer, and he said, not my will, but thy will be done. Grace had to carry a cross up the hill on weary legs after being beaten all night long. Grace had to endure being spit upon and putting a crown of thorns on his head. Grace had to be slapped, beaten, and ridiculed for my sake. Grace had to be nailed to a cross and lifted up off the ground. Grace had to be hung between two thieves, and Grace had to give up the ghost for my sake. But I'm so glad that 3 days later, Grace got out the grave with all power in heaven and earth in his hands. That's God's grace for me,
yes. Thank you.
that lets me one day be caught up to meet him
Yes, Lord.
in the air. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life.